Hello, and welcome back to Theabodium. So this is a pretty simple video that I'm just putting together to, I guess, explain my experience of deck building. I've been playing Magic the Gathering for close to, I think, 8 years now, and I've always been trying to build my own decks, and I've never been good at it, ever. But I'm making this video because I have finally succeeded in making what seems to be a decent competitive deck, one that I might actually be able to take into a tournament and actually win a few matches. Modern specifically, that's the deck type that I normally build. What you're seeing me attempting to shuffle in front of you is the deck that I've first built from scratch that I thought was good, and then I got horribly destroyed with it many times. I'm drawing a test hand here just to show you what the deck is like. It wasn't as good as I would have really hoped. Evolving Wilds sucks. I'm just throwing it out because that was just in place of Scalding Tarn. The stuff in my hand is not very good. The deck doesn't really do very well. I drew 2 cards so I could show you that normally I enchant Enchandra's Magma with Curiosity. That was my plan for this deck, to have a card draw engine where I could just tap Chandra's Magma every turn or multiple times a turn because of stuff like a card like Ralzarek. But that never really worked because having some type of draw card thing that works on having 2 different cards on the battlefield at the same time is just not a good idea. That's what I learned from this experience. That's why cards like Opt and Serum Visions will always be better, because you pay 1 mana and you immediately draw a card. It's getting rid of a card in your hand and replacing it with another, whereas that Chandra's Magma thing required it to be at least turn 3 before you could get the combo out. And yes, you could draw cards repeatedly. Maybe it would be good in Commander to have something like that, because draw card engines in Commander are really good even if they don't come out until turn 3 or 4. But in the setting of a modern game, the game is ending by turn 4 or 5. The winner of the match is decided by that point. You don't need to just begin drawing cards at that point. It was supposed to be a Chandra-based burn deck, which is why I have Chandra's Regulator in there to copy Chandra Planeswalker abilities, which is really nice, but it's just not quite fast enough because Planeswalkers are expensive. So basically what I learned from the experience is that you have to consolidate down what you're doing in a competitive deck. At least if you're a beginner, maybe mid-range deck builder, you've been building decks for a few years, but you're not very good at building decks like, me, keep it simple. As difficult as it is to do, as much as I want to put in different strategies, you need to keep it very simple. Do not overthink your deck. Stick to a single strategy. You want to have draw a card in there, that's good. You put blue into your deck and put Opt and or Serum Visions into your deck, and you have a decent amount of draw card. And in the case of burn spells, if you're making a burn deck, put Electrolyze in there, because Electrolyze is both draw card and a burn spell. And that's, I hadn't explained that yet actually, but that's what I was making here. I was trying to make a competitive burn deck. Just don't spread yourself too thin when it comes to creating a competitive deck, unless you really know what you're doing and you know how to implement like 2 different strategies at the same time, 2 different possible win strategies. And it's fine to mess around with that sort of thing. I'm not saying it's not. Have fun, build whatever decks you want, play them, lose with them, or win with them if you find a good combination. Do what you want to do with a deck. I'm not by any means saying don't build, because that is one thing that I stand by completely, is that I love to learn how to build a deck by failing. I have failed building decks so many times, and I didn't used to love failing with decks. I mean, I used to get so upset that I would spend so much time building a deck, and sometimes it still happens, obviously. I spent so much time building a deck, like this one, the first time I actually played it, I realized how bad it was, and I was pretty upset about that. But I've learned what it feels like to fail with a deck, and so whenever I feel that, I'm just like, okay, well, how do I make this better? I've learned to love the struggle of making a good deck. And so I made this video, I recorded all this when all of the cards came in for the remake of this deck. A deck that is actually pretty good. It is done what I've designed it to do. I've been able to win a whole bunch of matches against my friends. I've yet to be able to take it to a tournament just because the only place that I know of that does modern tournaments is on Tuesday nights, and I have been working every single Tuesday night. So I have not been able to actually go take this thing to a tournament, and I also need to finish the sideboard because I'm not experienced at all with sideboards. I know my sideboard is going to suck. And in that respect, part of my deck is going to suck because the sideboard is actually, part of the deck. But I just don't know how to build a good sideboard, and that's okay. I'll figure out how to build a better sideboard as I go along, but this is the first good competitive deck I've ever made. I didn't intend on getting too much into the details during this video. I just wanted to make a quick conversation about how I've learned how to be better at deck building, slightly. because I personally do not enjoy just looking up what deck is powerful and making that deck or something similar. Now, I've done that before, or more accurately, one of my cousins has built plenty of decks for me before that are based on what's powerful at the moment. But I personally love building decks from scratch. I mean, I'm not good at it, but I love doing it. And I think I finally found a good deck here. I did have help from my cousin. He made me aware of the existence of certain cards that I would have never found on my own, or at least not for a very long time, like Monastery Swiftspear, a card that is definitely in my deck now that I did not know existed before, and I wouldn't have known existed. So I had help in that regard of being told certain cards exist that I didn't know existed, but for the most part, otherwise, whenever he would tell me to do something like, oh, I wouldn't have that many cards of that type in the deck, I kept it in anyways, and learned why what he said was correct on my own. I just did it on my own and figured it out for myself, and I really enjoy doing that. And I'm excited to build more decks in the future and mess up with them a lot and eventually make a competitive deck and figure out like the best strategies for what I'm making. I don't feel like I'm good enough at deck building to give anyone any tips, really, with deck building, besides the only tip I think I have authority to give is just keep trying. If you're bad at deck building, it's fine. You'll get there, just keep trying, keep making horrible decks, and keep losing all the time. And if you really enjoy deck building and you keep doing it, then eventually you'll make a good deck and you'll realize when you've done it. And then it'll seem like it was worth it because it was really fun in the process, and all of a sudden you have this really cool deck. So enjoy your deck building out there. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Keep trying and enjoy it. Magic is about having fun, and it's one of my favorite games. It's probably my favorite tabletop game, which is saying a lot because if you know me, I love tabletop games a lot, and Magic is probably my favorite one and one of my favorite games of all time. So enjoy it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you in the next one.